right, hello everyone. My name is Ayla, and today I'm joined here by Zirui, Claire, and Moyo. We're here from the University of Alberta, and today we're going to be presenting on our work entitled Plastic with Purpose. So before I begin, I would like you to raise your hand if you own or have currently owned any of the items on screen or that you see on your table. Okay, I see a lot of hand raised. Me too. I probably own at least 30 of these little plastic bins in my home. These items are all great to have until you're done with them. And that's where our problem starts. None of these items have a publicly funded pathway for reuse in Edmonton. What's more, even around most cities, not only Edmonton, is that when you're done with these items, the only real option is the landfill. I would like to walk you through a little bit of an item flow of what happens when you're done with these items. First of all, you can drop them off at a donation center. You might give them to a friend or go to Value Village or Goodwill, and hopefully the item has a new life. Or you might put it in your blue bin, organics bin, or other bin for curbside collection. However, this system is severely flawed. There is only a 28% properly sorted recycling in the blue bin in Edmonton, and only 32% of Edmontonians know how to sort their waste properly. So ultimately, these items are ending up in the landfill, or worse, they're ending up in our environment in places like these as microplastics. You might think that this is not a big problem. So what? It's only a few landfill bins. But when you zoom out, the scale is massive. Since 1950, we've accumulated 9.2 billion tons of plastic. That's huge. And by 2050, this number is expected to double. What's even more astonishing is 9% of all these plastics produced globally have been successfully recycled. As you can imagine, this leaves a lot of plastics that are just being thrown away. We also have the same problem here in Edmonton. As you can see, from 2024, 56% of waste was landfilled or incinerated. And as you can see in this graph, a lot of components from recycle bins or food scraps still ultimately end up being incinerated or thrown in that landfill. So you may ask us, okay, why did we choose Edmonton? Well, we live here. We face these problems each day. We are the people who sort these bins. This gave us a unique opportunity to look at diverse stakeholders and their unique viewpoints. And hopefully we were able to find some feasible intervention points to create meaningful change. We came together through a course at the university, and we wanted to leverage our unique skill sets. We have skill sets from science, engineering, design, policy, and we wanted to bring these together to work as a team so that we could find this meaningful local change for this plastic problem. Before I begin in the root causes, I would like to share with you this quote that was given to us by one of our stakeholders that I thought perfectly encapsulated the problem. It says, "People focus on the mess at the end, but the real issue is how the system keeps creating it." We found this to be so true. As you can see from our iceberg model, there are lots of different events that happen, and all these are supported by different patterns, structures, and mental models that we hold and use. For example, we might see the pattern of our items having shorter lifespans. Things break down. And why does this happen? Well, it can happen because we have disconnect in the global supply chain. We have weak incentives to reuse and repair items, which might even be financial. We also have the mental models like, my actions don't matter, or new items are simply just better. Looking at our big system map, this may look confusing, and I don't disagree. However, we want to give you a few examples of root causes, which are these blue circles here. First off, we looked at the linear consumer and economic model. This is also called the take, make, and waste model. You can see here that we found that insufficiently regulated capitalism feeds directly into this linear model, which then contributes to the overabundance of plastics in consumer products. Our next root cause was looking at the lack of awareness of different city residents. When people aren't involved in higher level reuse initiatives, there's a lack of awareness of what's going on in their community. And then, of course, when there's lack of awareness, people don't sort their waste properly. So we're seeing this continual loop of lack of awareness. And finally, we have inadequate infrastructure. Across Canada, there's feedstock contamination and inconsistent labeling of plastics. Of course, there's also funding allocations and limitations, which directly feed into limited waste diversion options.
As it was said by a stakeholder, there are so many people doing great work, but we are all doing it in isolation. What's missing is a system that connects us. This leads us to our stakeholders and research ethics. We have mapped Edmonton's stakeholders ecosystem from residents and businesses to city staffs and grassroots organizers, recognizing that both play a role in both the problem and the solution. This map is a complex web of interconnected groups. Our research used a mixed system approach with stakeholders interviewed for both grassroots and institutional actors, policy analysis, and system mapping, grounded in ethics of respect, reciprocity, and non-extractive engagement. Our interviewees defined their realities. Their voices were amplified without editing. One of the reuse event coordinators shared that people want to reuse, but they just need access. Another shared the challenges of volunteer burnout. And this insight just makes it obvious that there is a strong public interest but a lack of supporting infrastructure. Jumping into our existing solution landscape, we examine the existing solution landscape both globally and here in Edmonton. Policies like extended producer responsibility and single-use plastic bans have been adopted. Edmonton has stepped up to with reuse centers, eco stations, and a zero waste reduction roadmap. We've identified 3 levels of change to examine key gaps to shift Edmonton into a more circular and sustainable economy. The first level of change addresses the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector, which is responsible for about 60 to 70% of the municipal waste, yet remains unregulated. And our first level of change is to require industrial waste take back, placing the responsibilities on producers. A second gap is that most recyclable plastics are more expensive than virgin materials. And our second level of change is to provide incentives for manufacturing. Many hard to recycle items ends up in the landfills because it's inconvenient to just pass them on. Community swaps exist, but they lack consistent support. Our third level of change empowers and promotes community reuse, and we also propose a digital and physical toolkit, also using NFC tags to track the circularity of these reuse items. Reuse is at the top of the waste hierarchy, and it promotes beyond the waste reduction, it fosters connection, a culture of share and collective community responsibility. Change just doesn't happen based on the top-down policy. Change happens through people and how we manage what we have. Stakeholders need to embrace each other's intention. Plastic waste is a complex and global issue, but solutions start locally. They start with small actions. It starts here with us. It starts in Edmonton. It starts here in Wang, and it starts with you.